Alright guys, so I made a post last night about my my LT1 here on the Facebook groups, and my phone's been blowing up ever since. So everybody's curious about my setup here. I'm gonna go over everything that you need to know. I'm actually supposed to be trading my car away today, so I'm gonna try to be real thorough and go over everything because I might not have it tomorrow. So right here, 411 PCM. Nothing new, right? Everybody uses 411 PCM. E5 connection, that's kind of their whole business as far as I know. You know, you gotta spend probably about $1,000 to get the harness and all this other stuff. That's not what this is. I am using the same computer, I'm not using it in the same way. If you have a 96 or 97 LT1 and you want to use the 411 computer, get rid of your optispark, you know, open up your tuning abilities, you open up other things such as like compatibility, such as, and if you want to swap to like a 4L80 transmission or something, you can do that real easy in the tune. That's the nice thing about this computer, is it can run a whole bunch of different stuff. Okay, so here's all the parts you're gonna need. My car's running on it, I did it, I know what I'm talking about. All the parts you need to make this work on your 96, 97 LT1 is as follows. You need a 411 computer. That's it. The stock wiring harness, all stock components. That's all you need. The LS1 has a 24x crank sensor. It has cool unplug. That's the setup that you're used to hearing about with this computer. This computer also runs Vortec 350s. Vortec 350s are very different from an LS1. They're very similar to an LT1. The Vortec 350 uses the same ignition coil, the same ignition module. It uses a distributor. It uses the same crank sensor. It uses the same mass airflow, map sensor. Basically everything that you need to make the motor run is identical between an LT1 and a Vortec 350. So if you want to use the Vortec 350 style, you have stock everything that you need. With one exception, the Vortec 350 has a rear distributor and a special crank sensor in the rear distributor. I wanted to switch my car over to that style, get rid of the optispark, get the better tuning. I actually put a rear distributor on my motor. But what I discovered last night was, I've been wanting to do this because I heard they can run without it. I unplugged my rear distributor, I drove the car, I could not tell a difference, which means you don't need it. If you don't need it, you don't need the rear distributor. You can just use your optispark, will work as the distributor. It is a distributor. But the optispark, the electronics inside it won't be used. It'll use the crank sensor to run. The only downfall to that, I'm pretty sure it runs in batch fire mode then, instead of sequential port injection. So my car is a 1993. It actually came from the factory like that. 93, that's all they had was batch fire. Supposed to be worse on fuel economy. It's not quite as efficient. I pulled up statistics of the factory EPA fuel estimate ratings. I compared a 1993 Trans Am to a 1997. According to that, the 93's got 1 mile per gallon less on the highway. The city was the same. There was also some different gearing that year, I think, so I don't know how big of a role that's got to play in it, but if it does hurt your gas mileage, I don't think it's by much. So what I want to do is, so mine, like I said, I got the rear distributor in there. This is set up exactly, you know, like GM does from the factory, the 350 Vortec. What I want to do is, I got it running good on the rear distributor. I want to fire it up, drive it. I want to log my my fuel trims, see if it's running rich or lean or whatever. And then I want to unplug the distributor. If I unplug the distributor, it's not using the cam sensor. It would be the same as somebody who had a completely stock car, but still the optispark on the front of it, and didn't have that cam signal that I have. and I think it's going to be really similar because I drove it last night, and like I said, I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't log it, I didn't look at the fuel. You know, let's go over it thoroughly and make sure, you know, nothing weird's going on. But it seems pretty good. Now, if you do this, there's a couple things you're going to lose. The EGR style they use in the newer vehicles and your evap system is quite different, and I don't see how you can retain that. So you have to delete your emissions basically. I don't use the EGR valve or the evap system. So you know, if you're strict on clean air, and or your state, you know, requires you to do that, that might cause some problems for you. I live in Kentucky and they don't really care what we do. What's the problem with having no cam sensor? You know, people say it takes longer to start. They say the economy goes in the toilet, whatever. I don't think any of that's really true. I think the economy might go down slightly. But let's take it out and we'll check it all out and see what we think. You know, the optispark's kind of junk, and it causes a lot of problems. So I think most of these guys, especially I paid 30 bucks for a junkyard computer. That's all you guys need to do. So that's pretty affordable for most people. If your optispark goes bad, the sensor goes bad, your car won't run. If you switch over this style, it will run because it uses the crank sensor. You don't have to have optispark. You do have to have, you know, a nice, you know, cap and rotor and like distributor, but not the electronic spark. You don't have to have optispark. You got an old junk optispark, it'll run with this setup. So I'm gonna hop in the car and then we'll do a little more work on this. Okay, so I'm inside the car now. We're gonna go ahead and start it up. I want to show you how fast and easily it starts. Right now I do have the rear distributor on. So this is, you know, as GM designed it, you know, it basically thinks it's a Vortec 350 in the van right now, and it's set up exactly the same way, with the exception of some emission equipment, which is not necessary for the engine to run. All right, so here we go. We're going to compare this in a minute to not having the rear distributor. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn the key on 3. 1, 2, 3. See, it starts up pretty fast, pretty easy. I've been playing with it a little bit. It doesn't seem to change when I don't have a rear distributor. So now I'll find a mounting spot for you guys up here, and we'll take it for a drive, and we'll look at how it drives, you know, the way it's supposed to be, and then I'll unplug the rear distributor, and you'll see how it would drive if you were to do this and not put a rear distributor in. The rear distributor is kind of a pain in the butt. Let me turn this off so you can hear me better. The rear distributor, I actually had to have an extra engine. I had an extra engine. I bolted down the intake on it. I put the hole in the right spot. I had to make a shim for the to get the angle right for the distributor to sit down. I had to mill off the back of the head, or the back of the intake where the EGR and that is, that make room for a distributor. I had to have a whole extra engine, and I took all that to the welding shop, because if you weld on that thing at all, it warps real bad. So I had it bolted down when they welded it so it wouldn't warp. And then to time to the distributor, I had to have a balancer with a timing mark on it. The cheapest way I found to do that was to use small block Chevy. So I put a small block Chevy balancer on it and pulley on it, and then I spaced out my accessories to line up with the crank pulley that stuck out a little further. So it was a lot of work, and if I had known that it runs this good without it, I just would have wired up that computer to the factory 96, 97 harness, and it would have been done. That's way easier. That's something that a lot of people could do and probably would like to do, and that's what my post was about. So so yeah, let's go ahead and hit the road. You know, we'll see how this thing runs. It does have a pretty big cam in it, but it runs pretty good despite that. So yeah, let's hit the road. So I want to start out with like some real easy, like light driving, just to see how, you know, cruise and idle and, like, you know, light throttle, how that runs, to compare it later. do that first. So with everything off factory and the rear distributor, very smooth. It runs really well, really smooth. That's what I'd have to say about that. You don't have to drive this thing very far to get a feel for it. And I've driven it in this setup many miles, so I kind of already know. But we'll turn around and come back and give it a little more gas. See how wide open throttle and stuff. Wide open throttle shouldn't be affected at all. If anything, it'd just be like the idle and like the low throttle, low RPM. That if it's running batch fire, that it should make a difference there, but I don't know that it makes even a noticeable difference. But wide open throttle, I don't think there's an advantage to batch fire or sequential fuel injection when you're only doing wide open throttle. Let's unhook the distributor, which would replicate what it would be like if you put it on a stock LT1 that doesn't have a rear distributor, and let's see what kind of difference that makes. Okay, so I got a factory harness on here. This is the plug for your optispark. I made a little pigtail that runs to my rear distributor because I don't have optispark anymore. So I'm gonna unhook this, right? Now I still have the distributor as a cap and a rotor. It spins and spins spark to the right cylinder just like the optispark does. I'm not using the cam sensor inside of there. So right now, this is basically the same as if you took this computer and you wired it up on your stock car and did nothing else. Okay, so let's go check it out. All right, here we are. We're gonna fire this thing up. It does not have cam sensor anymore. All right, I'm gonna do this on 3. 1, 2, 3. I didn't notice a difference there. It seems like it started the same as it always does. Let's take this thing for a drive, see what we think. Okay, same exact spot. We're gonna do like a light throttle. Much as before, seems very smooth. It's kind of weird because, like I said, this thing was batch fired factory, and I couldn't get it to run this good with the old computer. I put the 411 computer on, and it was then sequential ejection. It run, I don't know, maybe a little better. The main thing I did is I changed my injector timing. Like I said, I got a big cam in this, so I changed the timing to my intake valve opens a lot sooner than on a stock engine. So I changed my intake timing, my injector timing to match when the valve's open, you know, stop. And that made a big difference. And right now it doesn't seem like it runs really any worse than then. little further, we can get a better taste for this thing. Maybe I'll stop again and start again. But this thing's like super smooth. I can't really, it seems just as good. Had I known it would run this good without that rear distributor, I would have never put it in there. I'm gonna let this guy, boy, he actually turned off, didn't he? Okay, that's cool. This is smooth, man. It runs good. So on the Vortec 350s, you got the trucks and vans that have it. They claim if you lose a cam sensor, it takes longer to start, and fuel economy's bad. It runs really rich. Now the one thing I am doing different, it may be possible that those things happen when it throws the check engine light. When the computer notices it throws the check engine light, it might make things not work properly. Inside the tune, I got rid of that. So maybe that's why it runs so good. I don't know. So I've basically proved that it starts the same. It seems like it runs the same. I'm doing some easy driving. It seems just as smooth as it always was. And I do have a big cam, so it takes a pretty good tuning computer for this thing to run right. If you try to do this thing stock, it like surges real bad and stuff. So yeah, it runs pretty smooth on it. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hook up my laptop. You know, this thing has oxygen sensors. If it was running rich, I would see that on the laptop and my fuel trims and stuff. So I'm going to plug that in. I forgot to bring it with me. I'll do that here in a minute. There's a cop right there, so I'll just kind of hang out for a minute. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do some heavier throttle, see if it runs any different under some heavy, wide open throttle acceleration. There's a crap load of traffic right now. We'll have to wait a minute. Make sure nothing else different is going on. As far as I can tell, this car runs basically the exact same. I don't think it can run sequential port injection. I'll explain that in a little bit, but it doesn't seem any worse. I think this is a better setup compared to the stock optispark. If I drive through a puddle and my optical sensor gets wet or something, it doesn't matter. It's not being used. So if you had a no start with no spark and you suspected your optispark, you should be able to put this computer on, basically fix it. You know, you probably want to do, you know, new cap and rotor and plug wires and stuff. But you don't need optispark for the setup. You don't need the sensor anyway. The plug for your optispark will go to nothing because it's not needed. You gotta have a little fun sometimes. Yeah, this thing runs good. I think if you guys had this, you'd be happy with it because it's putting a smile on my face right now. So let me go over this sequential port fuel injection. Sequential port fuel injection, it fires the fuel injector on each cylinder at the right time, versus batch fired, it kind of fires it every so many degrees. Your fuel doesn't have to be fired you know, exactly the right time. It's not as important as like your ignition timing or something. So the 4X crank reluctor, it's a little wheel, it's got 4 like big teeth on it. I'm pretty sure they're all symmetrical, the same size and everything. So with the cam sensor, it knows you know, where your distributor's at. It knows it's getting ready to fire on cylinder 1 or whatever. Without that, it can't know, right? So it just knows when that reluctor comes up, it's time to fire the ignition coil. It makes spark. The distributor is timed correctly, and it sends it to the proper cylinder at the right time. But it doesn't need to know, you know, what cylinder it's on. It does for sequential port injection. So I think now, and I can't, like I said, I can't tell the difference. I can't. I think I have more, you know, I think on a stock car, the difference would be less, you know, because this is you know, big cam and stuff. It runs more poorly at lower RPMs. You know, you see them big cam cars, you know, sitting there chugging along. That's because it's not running well. They're not, you know, with a big cam, you're not efficient at low RPM, you know, which is a cool sound and everybody likes it. But I think if there was going to be a problem, I feel like, you know, my setup would be, you know, more prone to show it. So yeah, it runs good. The only other thing is the 4L60E. The 4L60E that was used in all the half-ton vans, they'll work fine. What I don't know, and hopefully there's some transmission experts out there that know this, I don't know if, you know, these cars came out, well, hell, 93, it would have been, it would have still had the 700 R4, you know, with the cable. It's not even computer controlled. But 94 and up, I don't know what the differences are in the computer between 94 and, say, like 2001 when these computers were used. I'm not sure how compatible the electronics are. They might be the exact same. They might have changed 10 times. I looked up a little bit on a 4L80 in the past, and I know that it had changed. So if anybody out there is like a 4L60 expert, if you could get that information to me, what's different, what's, you know, can I just, is it all the same? I haven't even looked. I haven't compared, you know, my car's a manual, so I didn't even look into that. But that's something that needs to be looked into for the automatic guys. You know, can this newer computer run, you know, a 1994 4L60? All right, so I got the laptop hooked up. I'm gonna go grab some lunch. I'm gonna let this sit and record, and it's gonna fill up this chart of, you know, all the readings that I'm getting, and then I'll look at that when I'm done eating, and we'll see, you know, if it's any different. All right, guys, I just got done driving it, looking at the tune. The results are in. So for those of you that don't know how to tune a car, it's pretty simple. The fuel, you drive the car, you see if it's running lean or rich, and you adjust it to where it should be. Okay, this LT1 is not a Vortec 350. It's very similar. I think the base tune for a Vortec 350 will get you on the road, so you can log it and tune it, but I'm pretty sure your numbers are going to be different than the stock Vortec tune. So I had to do that with that tune. Without the rear distributor, you'd have to do the same thing. You know, the numbers would be different, because what I found when I drove was your light throttle, because you're changing the way the fuel gets into the cylinder, it's going to make a difference. So my light throttle, I was maybe like 10% too much fuel. Okay, once you got down to mid and heavy throttle, the numbers look pretty good with the tune that I had. So I did stop and I adjusted it to make sure that everything would look good, and it does. I took some fuel out, and it works good. So I can see, like, if you have a Vortec truck or van, I could see where they say, you know, if you don't plug the cam sensor, it runs way rich. It runs way rich at light throttle for that tune. It's not right. Once you tune the car to not have that distributor, I just did it and I logged it again, the numbers look great. So your tune's going to be different, but it's not necessarily going to be bad. I don't think your fuel economy, like I said, I took fuel out of it. So the tune that I had before, it was giving it more fuel, it seemed like. But yeah, I think, you know, like I said, the 93's got 1 less mile per gallon, so maybe that'd be the case. But, you know, guys do that. You know, the guys delete, you know, displacement on demand and stuff like that. They probably take a bigger hit than that. So I think that's pretty good. The other thing I noticed, so like I said, I have a big cam, right? And sometimes, like a light throttle, the cam will try to, like, chop, like almost like surge, like you'll feel it kind of like camming, you know. And I think it was better with the sequential port injection by a little bit. It ain't a big deal at all. If I had known I could do this before I did all that trouble to put in a rear distributor, I would have never done it, because it runs really well without it. But if I'm being picky, I do feel that when I first drove it, I didn't feel it. I think it being so rich, it was kind of like smoothing it out and masking it. But once I tuned it to where it should be, you could feel it just a little bit more. And this cam, it's not even really designed for fuel injection, so on a stock car, I don't think that would be an issue at all. I think it'd probably feel the exact same. So yeah, I'm happy with this setup. You know, I welded a hole over my my timing cover where the optispark goes, and I deleted it. I don't have a 96, 97 optispark either. You know, I would like to put one on and see, you know, what kind of difference it makes, but I'm not set up to do that. So I won't, but I kind of wish I would, because I think it'd run the exact same, right? All the distributor does is line up, you know, the spark comes, it goes in the middle of the distributor and it sends it to the right cylinder. Your optispark does that just as good as this rear one I have. So I think it's a pretty good solution for most guys. Like I said, all you do, you don't even have to cut any wires. Well, you do. There's like a couple you have to splice. Like there's a couple grounds that I end up sharing. You know, I took one ground and split it into two or something. But for the most part, you just pull the pins out of your factory connector and you shove in the new LS computer. That's it. You don't have to do nothing. You don't need no extra parts. You know, all the things. You know, this computer was made to run a Vortec 350. All the parts the Vortec 350 uses is the same parts the LT1 uses. You already have it. It's there from the factory. So I do it, guys. Get you a computer. It runs good. It runs better than most optispark cars I've seen, you know, and you don't need the optispark now. HP tuners, you can do that. You open yourself up to, you know, the availability of using like a 4L80 transmission or something like that. It's pretty good. Now I have a 6-speed. I got the pinouts on my my Facebook page if you want to see that. I haven't done an auto car yet. I don't know what else to say, guys. It works out pretty good. I'm glad I stumbled upon this. You know, I heard it can run without a cam sensor, so I just unplugged it and tried it, and I was really surprised by how well it ran. So I think this is a good answer. You know, I think like EFI connection 24x conversions, I think those are good. I am not a wealthy man, and that's definitely out of my price range. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people, especially these old LT1s. They're not expensive cars. People don't buy these because it's a coveted car. They buy it because it's cheap fun, I think. You know, maybe some people really, really love like this particular car, but I think most people buy them because they're affordable and they're fun. So I think it's going to be a good option for everybody. Like I said, you got any questions? I'm getting a bunch of like Facebook friend requests from my personal account. I'm not going to accept people I don't know in my personal account. However, if you want to go join my Facebook Horsepower Tube page, you can message me on there and I can respond that way. And I don't know what else to say, man. I think this is going to be really great for the LT1 community, and I hope this helps everybody out. Something else I wanted to go over, I forgot to. So the other thing I need to go over with you is so that you get the computer. It's a LS style computer. It uses the holder that holds the computer. That's different than, you know, your LT1 computer. Your 98 plus cars, V6 or V8, both use the same size computer. So go to the junkyard, get you a holder for that. Fits right in like it's factory. You gotta change the wires into the new computer. I have that pin out on my Facebook page. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the tuning. So the tuning, this is a computer from a different car. You're going to want to turn your VATs off in the tune. You're going to run mostly the Vortec 350 stuff. If you get the computer from a Vortec 350, you know, that's already in it. If not, get a hold of one of those tunes, because these 411s, they're using all kinds of stuff. But you're going to want to put mostly the Vortec tune in it. So you're going to use the Vortec tune for mostly everything. I also got a hold of like a 2001 Camaro Z28 tune. You want to get a hold of a Camaro tune, copy the electric fans, all the settings for electric fans. That needs to be all straight F body. And then all the settings for the air conditioning. Air conditioning works totally different than it does in the van. Use the F body air conditioning in the tune. I had to use a F body wiring diagram to see where the tach wire goes. I guess the express fans don't have a tachometer. I'm not sure if there's something about the tach in the tune or not. I think there is actually. So you're gonna want to you know, copy whatever the Camaro has, or Firebird, whatever, for the tach signal. If you're a 6-speed manual, I used all the transmission stuff from the F body tune. But yeah, it's pretty simple. This computer, it's basically the same one they use in the LS cars, so it's made for this exact setup. We're just using the small block Chevy Vortec engine part of it, and then, you know, the electric fans and AC and tach, that's going to be transmission, that's going to be stock Camaro stuff. But I think that's going to be it. I can't think of anything else to say. You got any questions, hit me up. I'm glad I discovered this thing's going to help a lot of people out. You know, we finally stopped being the butt of all these optispark jokes and everything. So thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all next time.